Welcome to another session of Technology by Performance. I'm Ken Umansky, your host, and today we're going to have another journey into the world of technology. My guest today is Matt Putra, founder and CEO of EightX, a fractional CFO company that helps small and medium-sized companies successfully scale their businesses. Matt is a seasoned fractional CFO with over a decade of experience helping e-commerce and consumer brands achieve financial clarity and sustainable growth. Through 8x.com, he empowers companies across the globe to transition from financial uncertainty to confident, data-driven decision-making. Today, he's going to share with us how financial innovations integrates with technology to drive efficiency and scalability. Welcome, Matt, and thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Ken.
Well, I'm looking forward to a great discussion. I know as an entrepreneur and CFO, you have used technology to increase revenue and profits for your clients. Both my audience and myself were very anxious to hear your experience and how you did that. So let's get started. First, tell me a little bit about Matt and how you've been able to your journey rather to become a fractional CFO.
Yeah, of course. It's been a long, arduous journey in some cases, but I started off more or less in operations and manufacturing. And when my wife was pregnant with her first son, I realized I needed to figure something else out. And so I figured what would be a hard degree to take at college. I went back and got my finance degree. Anyway, flash forward a few years, ended up as a VP at a private equity firm. Um, I ended up as a senior partner, CFO there. And, corporate was tough, 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. And I was then commuting as well into my downtown, so that adding then 2 hours of commute time. And I wanted something where I could be home more, be with the kids more. And so I started my own thing.
That's great. Yeah, 33 hours a day or 6 hours a day, however long you were going.
Yeah.
I did that a little while in New York and it just was brutal. I
You
couldn't,
did. Oh, okay. Yeah,
never saw my kids.
exactly.
I think that roast beef did have to have a crust on it because that's the only time I got to eat it because it was always overdone.
Hmm.
Anyway, really glad to have you. And thanks for the input.
Of course.
How are you integrating technology in order to provide financial innovation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the big thing right now is AI. So we're trying to, I've got my whole team using ChatGPT. We've given them all accounts. We're looking at building automations. And I mean, just today we launched something that's now collecting all of our phone calls and finding the right Slack channels to put call notes into. So the right client focused channel. For our clients, of course, we're looking at machine learning in terms of taking in like a lot of data and trying to help them forecast better. Because if you can forecast better, then you can plan your costs better and so on, right? Those are the two big things that we're doing for us and for clients.
So are you using AI agents? Is that what you're using in order to do the integration?
Yeah, I mean, sort of like loosely, that would be the term. I don't know that it's sophisticated enough to call it an agent, but they're doing similar things. So I think internally, we're just looking at all the things people do that are the same every day, day in, day out. And can you automate those first? And then can you automate things that require some decision making? And that's the journey we're on right now. So we just taught this thing to make decisions. So now instead of just sending action items to like one place, it can now pick where's the right place to send action items to. So that's one step more helpful. So I guess that's an agent, yeah. And then for our clients, we built an agent for somebody to help them with their um, knowledge base and employee handbook. And so we made an agent for somebody where people can chat with the agent and get insight on people's, again, knowledge base and employee handbook. So that was another thing we did recently. We're looking at building one right now for a manufacturing client where they have some very strict quality management protocols. So BRCGS, HACCP, and SMETA basically, and so we're trying to make sure that their whole production team has a friend ask about quality. So, hey, I spilled something in this place. What do I do? Well, now instead of going to ask your supervisor, who you may or may not ask because you don't want to get in trouble, you can now chat with this agent. Um, and so, they're going to avoid having to hire another technical coordinator because they have an agent.
So when you chat, is that audio or is that just
It text right now. Yeah.
yeah. You
Hmm.
any idea of taking that to audio as well?
I hadn't thought about it, but it's a good idea. Why not, right? Like, um, could you call the agent? I mean, I assume that that's possible. And I think that the trouble with me right now is like, how big can you really dream is what I find is actually the hardest part about this. Everything else, if you can dream it, it's probably possible right now. And that's where I think I get stuck the most.
Sorry. I'm working with a client though that actually has done that where they have taken, for example, an HR department, they've taken the
Mhm.
HR handbook so that all the people out in the field know what, can communicate with it for the same reason that they don't want to go to their boss to ask a question. Now they can go to
Mm.
the HR handbook. And it was done first in just text, but now they've done it so that you can talk to it and say, okay, I have a question. How many weeks of vacation am I going to be allotted, right? And it will answer you.
Cool.
Yeah, so we'll
Huh.
talk. We'll
Eh,
talk.
Yes, of course. That's great.
Um, I know you're working in various regions of the world,
Mhm.
US, UK, Canada. Talk a little bit about some of the few challenges, business challenges you faced by region, especially if you can relate it back to technology too, some of those challenges that you faced. That'd be really helpful.
Got you. Yeah, like we work in the EU and the UK and US and Canada, Australia, and I would say that a lot of the challenges are actually pretty similar, like at least in insofar as when it comes to running a business. Running a business is relatively similar all around the world. Everyone wants to make money and everyone wants to make profit, and most people want to sell their business for a profit at some point in the future. And where you get into the technology side is like, what is the tech stack they're using and how open is it? Like, so for example, in Netherlands, in Austria as well, they are very, very privacy focused. And so what you find in the US where it's very easy to get access to someone's QuickBooks file or API connection or Zero or their tech stack generally, even open banking, I find that much more difficult in the EU because there's a lot more focus on privacy. Um, Sometimes there's less willingness to use the US centric tools in the EU as well. So again, it makes it harder to do the integrations that you'd want to do. What else in technology? I mean, GDPR is a big one, right? Like you have to be so, so careful. Like, can you use chat agents? Can I build an agent for somebody in Canada that operates it in the UK or EU? I don't even know if that's allowed. Would I have to make sure the data center resides in the EU to do this? Like, so that's a whole thing. You have to be pretty careful about what information you pull out of the EU and UK.
In your experience, what are some of the common reasons why businesses fail to scale? And does technology make it easier to scale or more difficult?
Great question. So, I mean, so there's some big ones. One is they grow their fixed cost base too quickly, and it eats away at the money they have left to put into growth. So they're busy and they want to hire staff, but do you need to, or could you just wait and put the money into growth? I think that's one where I see people trip up on a lot, allow their fixed costs to grow too quickly. Again, if you think about the average business in CPG or e-commerce, any $1 of fixed costs needs $4 to $5 of revenue to cover it. It's not the same in SaaS. In SaaS, it's probably like roughly 1.5 to $2 of revenue to cover a dollar fixed cost in SaaS, depending on marketing, I guess. But if it's $4 to $5, you think pretty hard, and it's pretty hard to cover a new person because any new person is going to be 40 to 60K. And so then you need to drive 200,000 incremental revenue to cover that person's wages,
Yeah.
right? And so that is where I see people trip up the most. The happiest, easiest going founders I've worked with are those that have very, very, very low fixed costs. They work incredibly hard, but they get to do that from Mykonos or Cape Town or all over the place because they have the money to travel because they have all this profit, right? The other one, I mean, with technology, what I find to be, and again, I'm not a CTO, I'm a CFO, right? So my view is maybe a bit different from other in your audience, but what I find is people try to complicate things that maybe shouldn't be complicated. And here's an example. I work with a company that's doing $100 million or so in revenue a year, and they're in San Francisco. And they have a data science team of like 7 people. And when I came in, I said, we need a scorecard to have a high level overview of the business. And they said, great, let's put data science on it. I was like, okay, cool. 8 weeks later, the scorecard was not finished and it wasn't done and it wasn't updated. And I said, you know what? Forget about data science. Let's get the admin team to do it. And the admin team had it up and running the next day. And so the story, what I'm trying to, the point I'm trying to make is that you try to complicate things that don't need to be complicated, where you can make them very simple with a bit of manual labor. And I would say with tech, where people trip up is trying to automate too much too fast. Get something running, even if you pay a VA or admin person, or even if your teams have to do something themselves, make them do it manually. When you like how it works, because it's working, and if it works and when it works, then you go back and you automate it. I
Yeah,
had the same problem with my team. I hired a marketing person. I said, "Here's what we're going to do with marketing." He goes, "I got to automate it." I was like, "No, no, just do the work. When it works and if it works, we'll then go back and automate it." He's like, "I have to automate it, automate it," and didn't get anything done. So I let the person go. Right. Um, so I would say, yeah, like trying to overcomplicate something is the biggest reason I see tech implementations fail.
I see that a lot as well.
Hmm.
Um, in your view, what separates the $5 million company from the $100 million business?
I think it's a couple things. Well, there's a lot of things, but there's a few things that stick out to me. One is the level of risk the founders are willing to take. The people that I've worked with that are high 8 figures or 9 figures are they're just kind of cowboys ready to take some risk, whether they're women or men or whatever. Like I think they're just able to get their heads around taking $1 million swings at something that may or may not work. Um, that's one. I would say the amount of self-belief somebody has is another factor that I see that's different. The people that have gotten their businesses to those high 8 figures and in the 9 figures are just they just know they can do it. And they probably cry in the closet here and there. But I think that there's just a level of self-belief that I see. I would say what people most think is not true. Most people think is true, but is not, is that they have all their finances in order and everything's running smoothly. That's not true. Some of them do, sure, but that is not what gets you to 100 million. Like, I have worked with companies where I walk in and the financial systems are a disaster, and some are great, but I don't think that gets you or doesn't get you there. I think the other thing is a product people really love and the ability to understand how to connect with the customer, right? Those are things I think are common in those bigger companies. Other than that, operations being in order, not a commonality. Finances being squared away, not a commonality. Like I see all kinds. So if anyone's listening and you're like, I got to get operations perfect and finance is perfect, you don't. You just have to talk to your customers well and give them something they want, basically.
Back to sales.
I mean, I think so. Like that's what I mean, if I've learned anything on my journey growing up my own business, if I had gotten better at sales faster, I'd be bigger than I am today,
Mhm.
right? And like we would have figured the operational shit out later.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time. So what last thing would you like my audience to know?
I would say if you're not frustrated that AI is not doing enough for you regularly, you're not trying hard enough. Um, I am regularly just irritated with how little I can figure out and how hard coding is and why this lovable app isn't working the way it should because I'm just playing with stuff all the time. And I feel like if I don't do that, I'm going to get left behind quickly. So I would say, as a barometer, if you're not regularly irritated with AI, you're probably not trying hard enough at it. Yeah.
That's a great point, really. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks for telling us or sharing with us how technology's played a major role in building your clients' businesses. We
You bet.
appreciate that. Let me ask you a question. As AI and blockchain continue to evolve, I would be interested in you coming back to technology and letting us know more about how you've successfully used these technologies to grow your
Sure.
clients' businesses. Because,
Mhm.
I mean, every day AI is changing dramatically, and the use of technology is growing in business. exponentially almost. And you're right on the tip of that. And it'll be great to understand exactly what's going on from you from a case study standpoint. It'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah. I mean, I hope in 3 months' time that um, we will have grown the business without adding any more admin work and staff because agents will run a lot of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How can our listeners contact you if they have questions?
Great question. LinkedIn, if you look me up on LinkedIn, it's Matt Putra. On my website is eichtx.co. You can check that out. Those are the two best ways to get in touch.
Terrific. Well, again, thank you.
Of course.
Don't miss the next episode of Technology when we'll discuss how cutting edge technology is being implemented across many industries and the result it is having on these companies. Remember to please contact Performance Business Solutions at performancebiz.com. That's PERFORMIX biz.com if you need help with any technology challenge, large or small. Again, I'm your host, Ken Umansky, and until we meet again on another technology podcast, keep innovating.